Hey, Paul Byrd, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much, man.
Well, I just want
We've
to let the
been
viewers know it took us an hour to get the audio for this podcast. So,
an hour.
yeah,
Hey,
yes.
we were diligent though. We did not let it defeat us.
I remember when I used to, get called in the living room as a teenager because my mom's struggling with the VCR.
Mm.
And I was like, how can she not get this? Now I know.
Now you
Now I
know
know.
the VCR. I feel sorry for anybody that was not raised in the 80s. Was that not the greatest decade in history?
Man, I cannot disagree with you. From everything, man, from music to sports to just, you know, clothing. It was a cool decade. It's
God,
going to be
so
tough to
cool.
top.
I miss it so much, and we'll never have it again. Yeah.
Well, you can get some. The retro shoes are coming back. As a baseball analyst, I'm starting to see some mullets coming back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. So but that generation, and even like the '70s a little bit, '60s and '70s, like that music still stands.
Oh, for
But
sure.
like, say you turn on, the '40s uh, from Sirius Radio or something. I mean, it's totally. You're never going to listen to that, which you will do, when you listen to the Beatles or Bob Dylan or some just like really stuff that I think stands the test of time. And I think the '80s explored a lot of different things. So it was a fun generation to grow up in.
God, so great. And I think you're what, 2 years older than me? You're 54?
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
your elder. So be careful how you speak to me.
Yeah. Yes, sir. 10-4. Hey, I think
That's
I
what I'm
think the
looking for.
I think the first time we met was probably over 20 years ago. I'm thinking
Yes.
2003, somewhere that
Yes.
area. We kind of met through some ministry venture type stuff, and we kind of became friends. And then we've had that relationship where we'll have seasons where we talk, and then seasons where we don't. And I'm so
Yeah.
glad we're back into a season where we're having some communication.
No
Um,
doubt.
one of my greatest memories. I bet there's no way you remember this. This was probably right when the iPhones came out, or it might have even been BlackBerry days. I was sitting on the couch watching a Braves game, and I know you're in the bullpen, and you and I are talking theology via text during the game.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was so fun.
Oh, wow. That is crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love
I
that.
would not remember that. I'm
Yeah.
questioning myself. I should have had my mind focused on the game. But
You
anyways,
were a reliever then. You're a
it didn't
reliever.
matter.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was.
yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Hey, just for so I'm gonna do a quick introduction.
Yeah.
For people who don't know you, you're married to the amazing Kim, and how many years y'all been
Yes.
married?
So 31.
31. Wow. Two
Yeah.
sons. You got Grayson and Colby, right?
Yes. Grayson and Colby, 28, and Colby is Grayson's 28. My oldest, Colby is 27, and
Nice.
that
Nice.
happened quick, man.
Yeah. 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 And you spent 13 or 14 years in the majors.
So 14 in the big leagues, and then another 5 in the minors. And I always like to say, 19 because
Yeah.
those 5 in the minors, man, they were like double big league years. They were you're just not making anything. You're on school buses, it taxes your marriage. It's very, very hard,
Yeah.
and you're eating peanut butter and jelly just trying to survive. So those were great days, but we look back on those and say, man, how did we do it? Like really, really
Mm,
tough days. So I
yeah.
always like to add those, man.
Yeah. I love that about you. I love that
Yeah,
about you.
yeah.
Yeah. And now you're a broadcaster with FanDuel, right?
Yes, and Gray Media, which is Braves on Gray, which is Peachtree TV. So
Yeah.
I'm going back and forth, and I just, I love talking baseball in general, and it's one of my passions, and I feel grateful to be able to do that and use that
Yeah.
platform to walk around and whatever comes from that. I'm excited at that. It's baseball's been really, really good for me as a person. I've met some incredible people through that, and I love talking baseball with fans in the area.
Yeah. Yeah. Our beloved Braves, man. This is April. What is this? I don't know. April 8th. And
Yeah.
as of today, we're off. We're not off to a good start. 1-11.
No. No.
Paul, give us some hope. Tell us something. Give us some light.
Yeah, yeah. The hope is they have a good team with good players. So that's the hope. And you look at the new metrics, some guys who are hitting 170 should be hitting 300.
Mm,
They've hit the ball hard, expected base hits from the way they have struck the baseball is just not happening right now.
yeah,
So
yeah,
a little bit of bad luck, tough early schedule, and they do have a very good team. So, am I going to say, hey, they're going to win the World Series? I don't know. None of us do. Right now, we just want to win that next game.
yeah,
And yeah, that's it.
yeah. Yeah, there's something magical about baseball. I played all three sports growing up. Baseball had to be my favorite. I think it was just the nostalgia of it, the brotherhood of it,
Yes.
the kind of the slow pace of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, baseball was always my favorite. And then, of
Man,
course, growing
there's,
up on the Braves, Bob
yeah.
Horner days, Glenn Hubbard days, Chris
Yes.
Chambliss, the good old
Yes.
days back when they were
The 80s.
terrible.
We're talking about the 80s again.
Yes, and they were
Yeah.
awful. But I love, probably my hero. One of my heroes growing up was my papa, and we would sit on the carport. He had a little black and white TV that we would just watch the
Yeah.
Braves on the carport. So yeah,
That's so
baseball has
good.
always been very special to me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's it, man.
about 16 years ago, you wrote a book, Freebird,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it was kind of a book about your faith and your struggles.
Yes. I
Yeah.
kind of ran the gamut on that book. And that started out, Jason, as um, I went to do a living will with a lawyer, and he just said, you need to tell your kids about yourself. And I said, well, they know me. And he's like, no, no. He's like, how much do you remember about your dad before you were 7 or 8? Like, not a lot. So I started writing life lessons down, and a friend of mine who's an author says, man, this needs to be a book. So I
Mm,
was like, I'm not really an author. And he's like, no, Paul, you're really good. So I think the thing that I'm most proud about is that I actually, wrote it. I feel like God worked through me on some things. I was vulnerable in some areas where I talked about some issues that I had on the road. My first son was born out of a struggle with pornography that I ended up confessing to my wife. I felt like a fake.
mm,
Here I was, the chapel leader. And you just, you know, the verse, God gives beauty for ashes.
mm,
I totally understand that. And so my wife extended me grace and we worked through that issue. Um,
mhm,
my original mentor in my Christian faith told me to hide things. And
mm.
he said, you don't want to share your struggles with people because you want to, you don't want to bring to, the Lord, your faith, Jesus, however, you don't want to bring bad examples or, I don't know the right word I'm looking for, but you want to hide those things so that, he only receives like the glory. And that was
Wow,
horrible advice.
horrible.
Horrible
Yeah.
because people need to know that like Christians have issues. Like we don't become Jesus and we're totally dependent upon him daily
Mm,
and we're going to fail. And that does not mean that and when I say fail, like we are going to sin, we're not perfect. And so people always want to say, oh, that guy calls himself a Christian. Look at what he did. Or look at how he fell. Oh, yeah, there we go. There's another one, another hypocrite. And it's like, no, no. We are messed up. Like we are broken. And I think when I started sharing that in the locker room instead of acting like I had it all together and that I was perfect, I went from standing in the outfield by myself to having 7 or 8 guys come over and saying, man, thank you.
yeah.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, man, this world is a battleground and we don't always win. We are in this process of being perfected. We are in this process of being renovated. And, I'm thankful to say now that My struggles, if they were a 10 out of 10 before, meaning it was a constant pressure, it's maybe a 1 or a 0. I mean, I
Right.
just, and had my wife not received me, accepted me, allowed me to share what I was going through, had she kicked me out in the name of Jesus, in the name of tough love,
Mm,
I would not have my oldest son, and I
mm,
wouldn't be the person that I am, and who knows where I would be right now. So I'm very thankful to my wife, Kim Byrd, who is, as you said, we've been married for 31 years, and man, she is the love of my life. She is my
mm.
partner, and we're just like what we have going on.
Yeah, y'all are amazing together. You can be around y'all 5 minutes and just know you're great friends. You're just
Oh,
great
thank you.
friends. I mean, you can just tell it instantly. I remember reading your book, and you weren't the first athlete or whatever. I'm gonna use the word celebrity person in the spotlight to come out and talk about struggles. But from my recollection, you're the first person I know to talk about that struggle, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
there's a reason they call it every man's battle. And so I
yes.
remember reading your book going, wow, this is some courage. This is some amazing courage right here to put this on the table.
Well, I appreciate that. And that has grown. Like in our culture, the pornography, it's private, it's available to everyone that has a phone or a screen with the click of a button. So the the largest viewership of pornography is 12 to 18 years old.
Wow.
Like, our brains aren't even physically developed until we're 25.
Right.
So to pollute your brain with a lot of images, that leaves a mark, and it actually changes your brain physiologically. And
Mm.
man, I'm sorry to say that's it's really bad.
Hmm.
It's really bad. And if somebody is older and they make their own decisions and they get to look at what they want to look at, that's their business. But I don't have the answer to how to regulate that for a younger generation, but I do believe it's hurting us, and it causes you in a way to objectify women, in my opinion, and it
Yes.
causes you to struggle in relationships. Um, a woman is judged for her body.
Mhm.
But then you have that aspect of we are designed to be pleased by a woman's body. We are designed as a man to be turned on by sight. And it's like, I didn't do this. I didn't make myself this way. I didn't, create Adam and Eve as I believe that the Lord did, and design myself in that manner. So I have to honor that.
Yeah.
But I think when you have something like pornography, it is made to be perverted, and that's where you have I feel like anytime God does something good, you have an enemy who's trying to pervert that goodness.
Hmm.
And so, I do want to be attracted to my wife. I do want
Hmm.
to, as the Bible says, may her breast satisfy you always. Like I
Hmm.
do want to be, but if you're in your 40s or 50s and you're seeing a 20-year-old girl, 22-year-old girl, pick your number, that's,
Right.
very, very young, that's hard for like her to compete with and your mind to compete with. And you may become dissatisfied. There's a lot of traps that I think try to tear apart the family system, because I think that is what, um, first and foremost is our number one ministry and what we are called to. Love your neighbor. Neighbor in the Bible means nearest one. Like we are called to lay
Mm.
our lives down for our wives and love our nearest one with all of us. And so I don't think um, pornography is good for that. But I think we have to be honest, deal with that, and say, okay, this world is a battleground. How do I connect, have good, solid relationships in a world that offers me a lot of counterfeit lovers? That
Yeah.
is not what the Lord wanted for us.
Yeah. I love your approach you just took there too, because if we think of all of God's creations, if we think of the most beautiful creations that he ever made, we can look at, the Grand Canyon, waterfalls, you name it. Nothing compares to the female body.
Right.
Nothing that is it's his greatest creation. So
Yes.
I love the fact that you acknowledge that, right? That you acknowledge that we are dealing with a beautiful, beautiful creation from God. Also,
Yes.
too, that is exactly what the enemy would want to use to create an addiction. And it is an addiction, it really is.
Yes.
I used to being in recovery, I used to kind of, turn my nose up at people that called pornography an addiction until I got in school and really started learning it is an addiction. you
Yes.
know, the first chemical we have is adrenaline because we're doing something we're not supposed to be doing. So that's kind of,
Yeah.
we feel that. And then you got oxytocin and a massive blast of dopamine. And you got all these chemicals that's going, and that's when the addiction starts.
Yes.
And because we're giving that ourselves that stuff artificially, the brain quits making it. And then we start feeling depressed. The more depressed we feel, the more porn we want to watch. And here's the addictive cycle, right?
Yes.
So I learned it really is an addiction. And for the enemy to take the greatest of God's creation and turn it into an addiction is just so sad. But I love your approach, how you acknowledge the beauty of females, right? You're not
Yes.
saying that that's bad. Like we shouldn't acknowledge that.
Right. Right. No, I appreciate you saying that. And, they're studying now. My wife runs a ministry next door. By the way, you're in my hermitage here. Not many people get to see this, but yeah, this is my little barn where I go and I do some contemplative work. And it's
Mm-hmm.
my space away from the house where I can just get some quietness. And there's deer all over the place. And through the woods, she runs Birdhouse Ministries, which is a retreat center where she offers soul rest days and days where people can just reset, restore, recover with the Lord. And we've learned a lot of things because we've had counselors there. We've done some equine therapy, and um, you have teenagers who, they have the FOMO. They're comparing their mundane or ordinary life, which we all have, to people's highlight reels on social media all the time. And it creates depression, it creates anxiety, it creates a feeling of unworthiness because they get everybody else's highlight films. And that's similar to pornography in that um, you're seeing something that really isn't real. It's
Mm,
a counterfeit, but your brain has trouble distinguishing the difference. And then you say, well, look at, my life. And, in pornography, the woman never turns the man down and walks away.
right.
Like
Right.
that, yeah, that video is not out there. And that that happens in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That happens in relationship, and that's good and that's normal. And learning how to connect and in a way that is much deeper than the physical body, but yet that's also part of marriage too, and it's good. How do we navigate through all that? And so you don't really want to compare your life on social media or compare your life to what happens in a pornography film. All of these things make us feel like could make us feel like something's wrong,
Yeah.
with us, and that's really bad. And they're learning now, Jason, that the pleasure center of the brain, which you were talking about, where you get the dopamine, you get the stimulation, you get the adrenaline, things that feel good. Uh, these are the same chemicals that flood us when we worship,
Oh,
when we
yes.
sing, and we feel this enjoyment of just, praising God. And so now they're starting to say, like, when we're on our iPhones 4 or 5 hours a day because we get that same pleasure center rush, is it a form of worship? Are we giving our attention and spending so much time with something or someone or something that's really not there? Fantasy, counterfeit lover, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a form of worship? And
Mm-hmm.
so we want to make sure that we have proper worship. And look, we're not going to put away our iPhones or never use them. We're on one right now. This is a good part of the way we can use our phones, but we have to see those things for what they are
Yeah.
and not attach our self worth towards fantasy land. We
Oh,
have to
absolutely.
see that for what it is, and we have to get revelation into the truth about
Mm-hmm.
what is fake and what is real.
Yeah, so good. So it's almost like technology has almost created a matrix, like a world
Yes.
that's not real. Yeah,
What
for
an
sure.
incredible movie that is.
Wow. That
You could
first
have a
one.
whole podcast just on that.
Wow. That first one, man. There's so much good
Yes.
truth in that sucker.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think on the end of that, it was like Karate Kid or something for me where I just jumped up and threw a fist, across the room.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're also in because you talked about the barn you're in now is where you go when you need some contemplative space and time.
Yes.
You're also are you in year two of your spiritual direction
Yeah, I
training or are
have.
you done?
No, I have one more module and I'll be a spiritual director. So in a month, I'll be a full spiritual director, sustainable
Mhm.
faith. I went through a program and it's a, 2-year program. I believe you were in the same.
I'm in
And
year one. I'm in year one.
yeah, and
Mhm.
it's really been profound for me. It's been a huge piece of the puzzle.
Let's talk
I,
about
yeah,
let's talk about that. What has
okay,
because sustainable faith's a great organization to where they're training us to be spiritual directors, but as you and I both
yeah,
know, the best way to be trained is for us to grow in that area and experience that area that we want to lead people to. So it's a very much an experiential training. What has been the benefits for you? Like how has it changed your walk with God?
So if you ask 10 people, what is prayer?
Mm,
9 are going to say just talking to God. Great answer. One will say listening to God. I was in the 9. I was
mm,
in the 9.
mm,
Now I'm in the 1.
mm.
So it's really increased my understanding of how important listening is uh, to the Lord and to other people. I'm a man. I'm a guy. I'm an athlete. I like to be coached. I want to train. I like answers. I'm analytical in that sense of give me the truth. Let me make my decision. Uncomfortable at times with mystery. And
Mm,
so for me, um, if somebody sit with somebody and they have an issue, I want to fix them or
mm-hmm.
give them my opinion, which I've learned is not as important as just simply listening to them and caring about them.
Mm,
And I care about people. Like I love people. I think that's one of the things that Jesus has done for me when he says, "You will know my disciples that they love, not that they have correct doctrine, not that they have the right answers, not that they know the most scripture, but that they love." And so, just listening to someone, I have learned, is a really, really important form of love.
mm,
And giving them an answer may or may not be. It may be about your need to fix someone.
mhm,
It may be about the fact that you've learned to give people advice your whole life because you're a guy and that's what we do.
yeah.
And, and so it's helped me in my marriage, it's helped me in my relationships to know when to give advice, when not to give advice, when to ask a question and sit and listen. And that is also similar in my relationship with the Lord, in that, I'm always read something the other day that this is good. And I believe this is from the book You Are What You Love.
Mm,
Uh, but it's there's a sentence in there that says we have imagined sanctification is by information transfer.
mm,
So we have imagined that sanctification is by information transfer.
right.
So the more I know, the more I learn. I've got a problem. Let me read about this. Um, Information transfer, I'll be better, or I
Mm-hmm.
will be able to, and sometimes that is true, but a lot of times it's not.
Right.
Like you can learn everything. We were talking about pornography earlier. I read all books to fight against addiction or read about, all this, but like you can't information yourself out of that area.
Right.
Like you know what I'm saying? You can really,
Absolutely.
really know how bad something is and not be able to stop it. It's not a
Right.
knowledge thing sometimes. It's an experiential thing with the Lord of
Yes.
I need you to take this from me or be in this struggle with me, and let me listen. Let me
I
sit
re-
in quietness, you
I
know?
really, yeah, I really think you just helped me define spiritual direction because I'm almost done with year one. May will
Okay.
be, but and still, when people ask me what is spiritual direction, I don't have my good definition yet. But
Yeah.
it's hard. It's not easy to
Yes.
define. I think
Yes.
you just helped me put some language around it though, because it's definitely not a transfer of information. It is creating a
Yes.
space where they can experience God themselves, right?
Yes.
And not that information is bad. There are times when we need to transfer information. It's not bad, but it doesn't equal transformation. But on that experiential level, on that emotional, relational level, we basically just create this space for people to sit with God and hear from Him. Because
Yes.
if I hear truth from you, it's good. If I hear truth from Him, then I will be changed. Yeah.
No doubt.
So
And I
good.
think as a director, and look, people sit on the couch behind me, and I sit on the other corner of the couch. It's a big L. And, like I'll say, like if you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist, licensed uh, therapist, I'm not against that at all. Again,
Mhm.
I'm an athlete, so I want to be coached, and I just look at that as a coach. And if somebody's on the team and they don't want to listen to any coach and they're all about themselves, whatever. Everybody's like, get rid of that guy. He knows it all already. Um, so I think first of all, as a man, sometimes people are afraid to go to counseling. So if
Yeah.
you're struggling in your marriage, you're struggling with this or that, whatever, please go see a good recommended from people that you know and trust, a good therapist
Hmm.
on any of those levels that I just mentioned. But when you go there, they're there to give you advice. That's what you're paying for. And they're there to say, how can I help you? Where do you want to start? And you just regurgitate what, you fire, the things that have been plaguing you. And in spiritual direction, it's totally different. You may sit in silence. One of the techniques, which I personally love, is when somebody comes, is just to light a candle, sit, breathe,
Hmm.
and just sit in silence. And the question there is, where does God want to start?
Mm.
Where does he want? What does he want to bring up? And when I do that, the person that walks in the door to talk about this thing, we don't even get there
Yeah.
because God brought up something totally different. Like this came to my mind as I sat, and it's a bigger deal than I thought, and then it goes down a different trail, and I love that.
I do too.
I
I
love
do
that
too.
because the psalmist David said, teach me, try me, show me my ways, show me. And there's a very big humility in that, and saying that
Yeah.
I really don't know myself as well as you know me,
Yeah.
so you show me.
Yeah.
Uh, and that can be powerful. So I'm not knocking the other.
Right.
I just think it's a different avenue of listening. And
100%.
yeah,
As a, as a Christian counselor, we're our philosophy is a little different. Like even in our counseling settings, we don't give advice. But what we're programmed to do is find the wound, find the lie, find the coping mechanism, and get all that exposed, and then get truth found. Right? That's
yeah,
basically the gist of what we do. But spiritual direction, I have to turn that off. Right?
yeah,
That's been my biggest struggle so far. I've been a counselor now for 23 years, and to turn that counseling brain off and say, I have no plan, right? I have no
yes,
plan. We're going to sit
yes,
and see where the Lord takes us. And the last time I was with my director, because we also get direction as we're being trained. I went in with an agenda, and my director was so good because she picked up on that immediately, and basically we said, "Hey, let's just get surrendered." And Paul, it was fascinating that that session started with an emotion. So
mm,
as we were sitting in silence, this emotion of sadness just came rising up, And then that's what started the spiritual direction session. And I was like, well, that's fascinating because I've never had any kind of session start with just a random emotion that I don't know where it came from. So to be totally surrendered, we don't know in spiritual direction, we have no idea where God is going to move in that space and
Yes.
how they're going to bring that person. All right,
Yes.
let's
And
talk
I
about.
gotta
Go
say,
ahead. Yeah,
can I have
go.
one more really quickly, like behind
Yeah.
me on this couch? Just a really cool moment for me where somebody was struggling with, and this is I think one of our number one questions is how can God love us and all these bad things to happen to us, or really specifically me in my journey. If he loved me that much, would he really allow this to happen to me
Mm,
or whatever? And so this person was stuck with something that happened to them when they were 14 years old. So we went through that and I just said like let's his 14-year-old never got to acknowledge how much he was hurting. And I said, man, like it's still it's still you. Like the 14-year-old's still there. So let's access your 14-year-old self
mm,
and say what, say what you wish you could have said,
mm.
then you're still carrying that with you. Um, and it was beautiful, man. And I said, you're driving this bus, let the 14-year-old come up on the bus. And he said, yeah, my 14-year-old says, stop the bus. He goes, I got to get off the bus and throw up,
Mm.
and he's just sitting there and man, like the tears and all of this.
Wow.
And then he sits back and he says, know, this is not the world I have created for you. And I thought for a minute and I go, that doesn't sound like your 14-year-old self.
Right.
Your 14-year-old didn't create the world. And it was like the Lord just spoke through him. What did he need to hear? That's what he needed to hear was
Yeah.
that, hey, I didn't create this world.
Yeah.
I didn't create pain, death, suffering. I didn't create any of that for you.
Mm.
And he felt like the Lord's pain and how much he was hurting over a world that he's rescued us from, but he did not create for us.
Mm.
And it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. Now, my dad, growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, you don't say Louisville, you say
Louisville.
Louisville, when
Louisville.
you're really from there. Yeah, Louisville. So growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, my dad was a detective of homicide and he had some incredible stories. And he said when somebody had a mental disorder, they often thought they were Jesus Christ and they were, could jump off a
Mm.
building and fly, or they were, they heard from God and God. So when you talk about hearing from God, there's always this like, ooh,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now you're getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and so when somebody says the Lord told me, you got to be real, real careful with that because there's a battle, I believe, spiritually, because, as C.S. Lewis wrote, in the Screw Tape Letters, there's other voices that we can
Mm.
hear that want to mimic the Lord. And so
Yeah.
I think when you hear condemnation, when you hear accusatory thoughts, we know, hey, God is not a God of condemnation. We know from Romans, there's therefore no condemnation for
Right.
those who are in Christ Jesus. When it says, hey, one of the names of the enemy, the devil, and, those kinds of spirits are a spirit of accusation. He's
Mm-hmm.
called the accuser.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear these, horrible, weighty accusations, you have to be able to distinguish those and know that is not my father.
Mm.
That is not him. And so there's this constant battle. And I think also being able to discern when you have thoughts that come in, kick those out, run them through the filter of the Holy Spirit and receive that which God has for you. I think that is also a practice. And I think that is also what spiritual direction is about. And something that I can do when I sit with someone and I see them beat themselves up. My job as a director is to say, God doesn't feel that way about you. And that's where I
Mm,
will ask questions to try to get them there,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and there's a delicate, it's kind of a dance in that sitting and just being quiet and listening, but also being able to thwart the enemy and this
It
world
is
that
a
we live in.
it is a very delicate dance, and I'm not great at it yet. And I love that. I love
Yeah,
that I'm not good at this yet. Um,
right.
because, and I love that part because there's so much room for growth. But you're right; it is a delicate dance. Hey, let's talk about this. It's kind of in the same vein. So, stillness,
Yeah.
silence.
Yes.
That's something that I've always been drawn to, but has never come easy for me. So
Right.
even if we rewind 20 years ago, I was even then drawn to the contemplative authors. I was drawn to the
Yes.
Brennan Mannings, you know. I was drawn to that, and I didn't really know why, but it was my soul. Now I know my soul was just seeking stillness and quiet because I'm ADD as all get out, dude. Like, yeah,
Yes.
I know most people think they are, but I tell people I got papers to prove it. Like I'm legit.
Yes.
I am ADD. So getting still is very difficult for me, but it's not just necessary, it is absolutely mandatory if I'm going to experience the voice of God in a very intimate ways, right? And so that's one thing in our culture, especially as men, that we're not accustomed to. We're not
Right.
accustomed to embracing stillness, silence. We're so visually stimulated and we're constantly stimulated by everything these days. But speaking of that, like what has been your journey toward or what has been your journey with experiencing stillness, silence, and how important that is?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Um, I played basketball a year ago over at the school, and this one guy came out and he was terrible. And when he would shoot, he'd hit the backboard and it would like not hit the rim. And we're like, ooh. But after we finished playing the pickup game, what do you think he felt? I mean, he was just
Yeah.
war shame.
Yeah. Shame, embarrassment.
So he never showed up
Mm,
after that.
mm.
Why were we there? Just to hang out as dudes
Hang
and
out.
have a
Yeah.
good time. I'm not getting paid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go up and dunk and take an interview after the game. I don't play for the Hawks. We're just there to hang and have fun. But he wore that. And I started thinking, and it's like, I don't play in golf tournaments anymore. I get asked all the time because I'm horrible at golf. Like I'm talking, Jason, I'm taking out, satellite dishes on roofs when I hit, it's like, send me the bill. And as guys, we quit things we're not good at really quickly
Yeah.
because I think we get the identity out of things that we do a lot of times instead of just the fact that we are who we are and that we've been changed. So, spiritual direction, the aspect of sitting in stillness and being still is very hard for me. I grew up ADHD. My mom put me on medicine. I took a 6 hour nap. She took me off the medicine. She said, I want my kid back, telling me to
Mm.
sit still in school. I flipped like a fish on the bank. Like it was really, really hard for me. And I still carry some of that with me into adulthood. And my brain just goes off on a 20 different directions.
Yeah.
It made me want to quit
Yeah.
because I'm just not good at it and I'm a guy.
Mhm.
But I've learned that if it goes off in 20 different directions, you can bring it back 20 different times,
Absolutely.
refocus it on the Lord. And then maybe you're down to, after a year, maybe you're down to 19 different directions.
Yes.
And I've learned that it's a practice and that
Yes.
I don't have to be good at something
Mhm.
to practice it.
Mhm.
But if I want more of it or I like what it brings or I enjoy it, then it's a good thing. We have to do things we don't want to do. I'll finish with this. So I've been living this life, my wife almost died and I stopped broadcasting for 2 years. And I just went back on the air, and I'm in the stadium, and people are going nuts. It's opening day. I'm trying to do an interview. I've got an earpiece in where the director is telling me we're going to commercial in 10, and somebody's screaming and they bump into you. Somebody actually dropped an F bomb, and I'm, like, do you eat the hot dog they put in, all this is like, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I have been in chaos and felt connected
Mm.
in chaos my whole life. An ADD kid will start fights or yell or do all these things, be tough to deal with because his brain locks in and he's there
Right.
in that moment. And so they'll create situations of chaos, loudness, craziness because they feel right. And so for me, I've always felt more connected in the chaos. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't like this
Mm-hmm.
as much as I used to.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I'm I'm changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Your
I'm
soul is
changing.
starting.
Like I'm craving
Yes.
now. I got to get away. I can do this for a little while, but I got to go recharge, or I got to go
Mhm.
sit in my little barn.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized experientially how much these practices have changed me and how much I enjoy it. And like identity, uh, as I spoke of earlier, it's been a huge, huge piece of the puzzle for me in my Christian walk. And it's
Yeah.
been a huge tool that I've needed to fight everything that the world offers me right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I tell guys all the time when it comes to, getting still, hearing God's voice, entering that stillness, we are all amateurs and we always will be. And
Yes.
we have to adopt that and we have to receive that I am an amateur and I always will be. And if I
Yeah.
am 5% more still next year than I was this year, win,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You have to approach
Yes.
it that way. Yeah.
Yes.
You brought up Kim getting sick. That was in
Yeah.
2022.
Yes.
Yeah, and I watched a short video on I think it was on Facebook not long ago where I think this is the first time I've heard you mention that period of your life publicly. But if you're willing to kind of go into
Yeah.
however much or little of that story that you would like to
Yeah.
go into.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard for me. Yeah, man. We were joking, like I said in that video in the emergency room, and we love to tease each other. And I think the suddenness of it is what wrecked me.
Mm,
And that, a day later, the doctor told me to get everybody together that she's not going to make it. Come say your goodbyes.
because she had
Um,
sepsis, correct?
yeah, she went in. Yeah, there's different levels of sepsis. There's like sepsis and then severe sepsis, and then there's septic shock. And when you go into shock, that's when your body pumps blood at such a low level that your organs are not getting oxygen, and 50% die at that time, and then 30% of people that make it die within the first year afterwards because it was so taxing on their body. And then it's a 5-year recovery. She's in year 3 of that. But
Hmm.
you know because of the nature of this podcast and what it is, I'll tell you something that I didn't share on that video, and that's that when she was the machines said she was gone. You have a number called a MAP number on those machines, and that's the mean arterial pressure. And you have to pump blood at a certain amount of pressure, or it's like being underwater. You're not getting any oxygen, and everything dies. And that happens really, really quickly. And so, um, they jammed her with epinephrine, trying to get her body to pump the blood. And so the machines said she was not, it's like, yeah, you can't function with those numbers. And they're like, get off of her. I was holding her down. It was like something out of a movie. And they just said,
Paul.
we got to like shock her. And, so this is what's really, really crazy. And this, it's hard to tell in an unemotional state. but it's wonderful and it's awful at the same time.
Mm.
But when she came to a few days later, I had cut every deal I knew with God to keep her here, because I'm
Mhm.
selfish. And so when she came to, I was so overjoyed and thankful and elated. And she didn't want to be here.
Mm. Wow.
So she was said she was walking in the dark with Jesus, and she felt a peace that she had never felt in her entire life, and it was wonderful, and she wanted that feeling.
Mm.
And before we talk about like, oh, you'll if I died or whatever, you'd remarry quick, or well, I would
Mm.
never be able to. We have that discussion or whatever. And she was like, you got to let me go.
Mm.
She's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I was like, what? Like, who are you? Like,
Yeah.
what? And she just really wanted that peace. And again, I know I'm just gonna, again, you have this podcast, and so
Yeah.
I'll just share. But like,
Please do.
in the Psalms where it says, even though I walked through the valley of the shadow of death, when we really covered where she was, I think that's where she was. She was walking in the valley of the shadow of death. And I know there's a lot of different death experiences that people share.
Mhm.
They saw a bright light or this and that. She did not see that.
Mm.
She was in darkness with the Lord and was in like Lord of the Rings, this big valley, and felt just incredible walking with him. And she said Jesus did not talk to her, but they knew, he knew, she knew, they knew what each other, were thinking. And he's like,
Telepathic.
yeah, like I'm with
Mhm.
you in this and she's allowed me to share a little bit of that story.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly powerful for me because I was like, man, maybe maybe it would, well, I know it would have been better off for her if she didn't make it, but what would I do? It's
Right.
just
Right.
like, yeah, like things like that. You're like, man, I don't know, I don't even know how to pray anymore. I don't even what what do you do? How do you and so it's been a really awful and wonderful experience for us, and it's changed my life. And like what I said on the video that you said is, you know um I thought we were dying like the movie The Notebook, where we're holding hands in the hospital and we die
Mm.
at the same time. There's a story the next day on the news. But the reality is, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And
Mm.
verses like that kind of came to life like, oh, one day at a time.
Yeah.
Got it. Um,
Yeah,
time.
what an interesting position you were in as a husband, all right?
Yeah.
So you were told, "Hey, call the family in. She's probably not going to make it." So now you're dealing with that. And
Yeah.
then as you're watching the machine, you kind of see her leaving and you're fighting to keep her. She has this experience with Jesus and I don't know if it's a near death experience or whatever it was. And when
Whatever.
and when somebody has that experience, they always come back so surrendered, right? And now, but here you are, you haven't had that experience, but she has. She's experienced this peace that really passes all understanding that we just get a glimpse of. And now oh, what a weird situation.
Yeah.
What a weird situation, Paul. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you
She
so
doesn't
much for
remember.
sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. She doesn't remember 4 days of that.
Mm.
And like, there's something called septic shock delirium where you come back, and she, has deleted a lot of files. Now, Jason, I told her, I was like, why don't you delete some of those files where I said some really stupid stuff in our marriage? But no, man, no, she's held on to those. Those are in a big vault. She doesn't want to give those up. So, but she got rid of some other things. And then, she still has some issues, at night and certain things, where I'll have to remind her. This
Mm.
is kind of sad, but I'll have to remind her that I'm her husband. She'll
Mm.
wake up and not know where she is, and it just takes her a while to process certain things now. But yet, so there's been differences in her, but it's wonderful because we live our lives different. And like,
How
the
so?
Bible says your mist vanishes, it's that's true.
So the
Like we're
concept of
like,
time, the concept of time has taken on a new meaning. Like the
yeah, like
time we have.
how you spend your time, that is the most valuable thing you have. You don't know, apart from the Lord, He has given you a period of time and you get to choose how you spend that money, how
Mm,
you spend that time, how you spend that resource. And it's totally changed me in a sense of it's a bank account that you don't know when it's going to run out. You think you do. Like when we plan out our retirement fund or we
mhm.
plan out our this or that, we never be like, hey, man, I gotta make it till I'm 60 and then I'm out of here. So how do I, we're always like, okay, here's the average lifespan. Here's what I need to prepare for. Here's what I whatever. And we just like, man, you may be gone tomorrow.
Mm,
Like you may be gone tonight. Like you
mhm,
don't you don't know when that account runs out.
mhm.
Therefore, when you really experience that, it has so much more value than you attributed to it before. So now my day becomes very important
Yeah.
and very precious. And, people will say, I didn't start living until I got the cancer diagnosis. They'll say things like
Yeah.
that. And now, before I was like, oh, I don't need cancer. I value my time.
Mm.
No, I didn't.
I
No, I
actually,
didn't.
I've actually been able to experience this because earlier you mentioned that y'all have this ministry, Birdhouse Ministries, and
Yes.
you create this space to have days of soul rest and like a day retreat. And I got to experience one of those about a month ago, and I experienced what you're talking about with Kim. So Kim led our retreat.
Yes.
And you could tell, I mean, you could just tell she was completely present in every single moment in a
Yes.
different way. Like every word was intentional, is not the right word. Every word, she was very present when she spoke it. When we
Yeah.
would sit in silence, she was very present in the silence. And you could just tell, like, she has been through something that has made her, what you're talking about, more aware of how precious every single moment is. And
Yes.
even with you, I was so, I could just tell because I hadn't seen you in a while, and you had this different countenance. And I love that
Yes.
you were actually, I mean, you were. I know you've always been a servant, but you were serving us, like you were actually serving us food and giving us your
Yeah.
time, and it was just such a special place. I would encourage anybody to go to Birdhouse. I think it's birdhouseministries.com and just look at the different days y'all offer because you offer days for counselors, first responders. Talk a little more about that. Tell us about Birdhouse.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that. I'll receive that from you. That's you asked me how spiritual direction has impacted me. That and my wife's near death experience has changed me drastically. And what that word you just used, presence, being present to that moment,
Mm-hmm.
is, I believe, a huge secret to enjoying your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do. And so for me, serving or me listening to you or me hanging out with you, me on this podcast, like for me, that's time well spent.
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Mm.
do that. So
Thank you.
that's really, really good. We had more of a counseling feel to it with anybody that's wanted to come, and it's kind of gone a different direction to now where we see first responders, we see people in ministry who are burned out.
Yeah.
um, Unfortunately, man, I don't, this is another podcast, but I think sometimes people in ministry, they take care of everybody else and they forget to take care of themselves. So um, I may or may not be talking about you, but sometimes when we're a big giver, we forget, oh, I got to build back in. And so we do that, and we have really enjoyed ministering to people who minister to others.
Yeah.
Sometimes we bring over the horses. When you stand next to a horse 5 feet away, your heart rate lowers. Sometimes people walk the trail and they just feel connected.
Mm-hmm.
um, we put in a labyrinth I
Oh, I love
wasn't
that.
real, yeah, man, I wasn't real big on it.
I love
Kim's
it.
like, I'd really like for you to do this. So we worked on this, and I was like, I don't know. I'm going to do it because you want me to.
I
And then
love
I'm
it.
like, oh, I get it now. I get it. I didn't know something like this was a tool that could really minister to you in your life, but you may pick something up, a rock or something, and symbolizes something you're carrying. You walk slowly in the labyrinth. And then at the end, man, you release it. When you get to the center, you release it and you pick something up, and it's a really cool way to experience something on the outside that you're praying and wanting God to do on the inside. And people are like, man, I walked out of that labyrinth. Just felt like I dropped 50 pounds off my back. I'm so much lighter. And I was like, oh, I get it. So um, part of the course, man, I'm usually a little late to the dance, and my wife, you know, is ahead of me
Yeah.
in that area. So I'm like, oh, now I understand what you're talking about. That's a wonderful addition to the ministry. So that's been really cool lately. And um, we love what we do. When we got married, we were deeply, I got to give a shout out to somebody that you know, Frank Friedman, who
Mm-hmm.
walked us through some Grace Ministries counseling and really taught me my identity when
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was an athlete. He's like, yeah, no, that's what you do. So
Yep.
he was able to teach me my identity, and it was so profound for us. We thought, well, if we ever are able to make it, let's open a counseling center that
Mm-hmm.
teaches some of these truths. And we are really excited at what God has done. And Kim runs it, man. She's a really good leader, and she's had to get help leading it now,
Mm-hmm.
running it now. A lady named Claudia Perkel helps her and does a great job, but they co-run it, and man, it's just a wonderful place. So thank you for saying that.
Oh, I so enjoyed my day. I so enjoyed my day there, and it was very refreshing. I've learned the hard way that, yeah, as a counselor, I have to take care of myself, and
Yes.
I will let some seasons get away from me. Like I got overextended January, February, even part of March this year, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm like, okay, that's enough, and so we're going to back her down, go do a little more fishing, a little more
Yeah.
time away. So yeah, I'm not perfect at it, but I have learned the hard way that if I don't put the oxygen mask on me first, I can't put it on anyone else.
That's
You know,
it,
so
man. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so great. Let's end with this. You mentioned identity a couple of times, and
Yeah.
it's so important for us to know who we are.
Yeah.
How has learning who you are in Christ just kind of changed the way you approach life in general?
Great question. I look at the Christian faith as like you're putting a puzzle together, and you're like, sometimes it doesn't make sense. And then you put a puzzle piece in, and you're like, oh, now I see this is and identity has been a really important puzzle piece for me in that process. And I'm always learning more, and I'm growing. I just recommended a book to you called Liturgy of the Ordinary
Oh, so
by
good.
a lady named Tish Warren. Oh, there you go. Look at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, yeah, that's good. So here's what I think, or here's what I know, is that this world attributes value to man's ability to do something special. So if you're a heart surgeon, not many people can do that. That's special. You can operate on a heart. So we're going to pay you more. We're going to value you more. It's a big deal if you sit at a dinner table and you say, I'm a heart surgeon, because you can do something that only few people can do in the world. But what Christianity says um, it's not what I do, it's who I am, and it's who does it.
Mm,
So let me give you an example of that. If, you know, I'm just going to say this on your podcast,
yeah.
Donald Trump,
Mhm.
whether you like him or not, he's a very polarizing figure in the world.
Mm,
And so if Donald Trump, and again, please lay aside what you think, but if he flew in on a helicopter, landed in my horse pasture over there, and took out the trash and you know, I got a long driveway. You got to walk the trash all the way down the driveway. So let's just say he does that. I'm like, man, what's going on? And he's like, well, I mean, I just really wanted to serve you today.
Mm.
Have a great day. And he gets on that helicopter and he flies away. What would you think?
What just happened?
What just happened? Oh my gosh. Like, there may be a news crew here that like films that and says, you know, President of the United States takes out Paul Byrd's trash in an act of kindness to make his day better. We'd be like, what? So,
Mm.
but all he did was take out the trash.
Mm.
So what you just told me is it matters who does it,
Right.
not
Right.
what you did.
Who does it?
Who does it is the bigger deal. So Christianity, Jesus flips that and he says, if you just give someone a cup of water in my name, man, you've done an incredible act. Not because giving the cup of water was a big deal. It's because who did it?
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, man, like if you, and as an athlete, I can tell you that I had stadiums full of people like chanting my name. I was being paid a lot of money. I was so overpaid and all this. And like, that doesn't fill you.
Yeah.
The act doesn't fill you. Like being a good person, joining the Peace Corps, doing this. And I'm not saying I don't admire your desire to help people and help the world. I'm just saying it's not going to fill you because you're designed to receive Jesus and have the inside changed and have your identity changed and become a person who you were designed to be, which is house the Holy Spirit. That's what you're looking for, not the act.
Hmm.
So when I brush my teeth in the morning, you know, and we say, who are we? Well, we're children of God, man.
Amen.
We're called saints.
Amen.
We're called ambassadors for the kingdom.
Hmm.
We're children of the king. You call a child of the king a prince or a princess. Like our value is through the roof, not because of what we did, but because of what he did. And then
Amen.
when we receive that and we go and we do something really, really small, it becomes magnified and it becomes this huge, powerful act, not because we did it, because of who we are when we did it. So if I brush my teeth, you have a saint brushing their teeth, which is a very mundane act, but it's a it's a big deal because
Yeah.
of I'm taking care of my body, thankful for my teeth that the Lord gave me, and I'm being a good steward of that, and I'm saying thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this book you recommended, The Liturgy of the Ordinary. I read the first chapter this morning, and
Yeah,
she talked about how, like the holiest part of her day is before she gets out of bed, because she hasn't stepped into the mom identity. She hasn't stepped into the doing identity. She is simply just in her bed as God's
yeah,
daughter, right?
yeah,
And very
yes,
comfortable in that. And then she even talks about Jesus's baptism, where even before his ministry began, the Father said, "This is my beloved Son in who I am well pleased," when we really don't even know what he's done yet, right?
right.
His
That's
work is
good.
just about to start, but this is my Son in who I'm well pleased. He's pleased with us because of who we are, not because of what we do. That's the core of
Yes,
identity. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So
That's
good.
good stuff, man. And we forget, as she mentions, like, yeah, man, Jesus ate and
Mm-hmm.
drank and went to the bathroom
Mm.
and laid down to sleep at night. He had to give a third of his life to sleep, we think.
Yeah.
And, he did a lot of the mundane for years and years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, was he not Jesus?
Right. Right.
No, he was.
Right.
Identity is not, it's independent of the act. It
Mm.
is who you are. And so, um, that was a huge puzzle piece for me as an athlete who was liked based on how well I pitched, who was paid based on how well I pitched, was treated in the locker room differently if you had a good game or a bad game, all of these things. And so many people can apply those to other areas of their life or their vocation. And it is genuinely tied to the do. And I think it's okay to be.
I can see how important this would be to parents with children who are athletes of really enforcing you are my loved child regardless of how you
Yes.
perform. And not just to say
Yes.
it, but say it in a way where they believe it because you have to
Well,
believe that, right?
and to show that, yeah, I tell parents the greatest thing you can ever tell your child is just, I love to watch you play.
Mm.
That's it. I love to watch and say that after they just bombed.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't care. I just love to watch you play.
Paul, wow, this has been such a great time. I really hope we get to do more of these together. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for coming and sharing your heart, sharing your story. I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this conversation. So I love you, brother.
thank
Thank you
you.
so
Hey,
much for
man, love you
doing
too.
this. All right. See you next time, bro.
Bye bye.
Go Braves.